Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. My name's Tim, and this is
Joy.
And at the very top of the show, I think I'm going to hand it over to Joy because she's got some things that she's excited to talk about.
Well, one I just thought was a very interesting headline, so I'm going to start there. So, and Tim's probably going to look at me like, what would I say this? But it's just random. Performing misogynistic songs is now outlawed in the Mexican city of Chihuahua.
Okay.
So the mayor banned songs to promote violence or discriminate against women to help curb a rise in female violence and things like that. So I just thought it was random because, I mean, of all the things, like the music is there's a lot of things I think affect things, but I don't know that my mind would instantly say ban the music, but I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing either.
No, I think the sentiment is well placed, but I don't know quite what that would achieve. I tell you, thinking about it, do you know what it probably is? A lot of the topics in rap music is very much like that, very misogynistic, very, against violence against women and things like that. So I don't know, by saying that, he's just banning rap concerts.
Maybe. I mean, to be fair, though, that can be found in some rock music, too.
Sure.
It's not one way, but I just thought it was random. It says violence against women has reached levels that are considered a pandemic in our area, and we cannot allow this to be normalized. The ban applies to songs deemed inappropriate that have violence or discriminate against women, with fees ranging from about $39,000 USD to $71,000 USD. Money raised will support an institute and a women's shelter. So I thought that was kind of cool. Like, out of all of it, if you do get fined and you have to pay the fine, the money isn't going to like the city or like to buy, more cops or anything. It's going to for a women's shelter.
Yeah, I think everything about it is well placed in theory, but in practice, I don't know quite how much effect it will have. And I mean, how do you police that?
That's what I was wondering. And the other thing is, like, if someone already owns the album, you know what I mean, Tim, and they're playing it in their house, there's no way you're going to stop them from playing it. It's a very weird kind of thing that if I were trying to figure out a way to reduce or negate, violence specifically against females, I don't think that music would be the first thing that would come to mind. But, to each their own. I just thought it was very random.
Yeah, and the other thing is, when you start banning art, that it's a very slippery slope.
Well, and like you said, it's so interpretational. What I say might be one thing to me and something completely different to another person. So it's very hard for me unless it's very blatant. And I didn't read into the law, and maybe it goes more in detail to that. But I just thought that was an interesting thing. Now, the one thing I really want to talk about, though, that's not related to this, have you seen this trend of people throwing objects at musicians on stage recently?
Yeah, I think it's something that's existed for some time. And I have spoken about this before, but I played a festival date with Ian Husbands probably close to 20 years ago at this point, and it was on a very large stage. It was about 5,000 or 6,000 people in the audience, and it was the Glastonbury B stage. And that they had it was a VW Action event or something like that, Bug Jam, one of those sort of things. But big stage, thousands of people playing with Ian. We're playing a cover set. I think we was either supporting a headline act or... Actually, I'll tell you who it was. We were supporting Chaz and Dave at Bug Jam, I think, or VW Action.
Random.
One of the two. And thousands of people having a great time. Playing away, and I'm playing there, and I look up, and a 2-liter orange Fanta bottle is coming at my head, tumbling in the air. I could see it coming. And luckily I saw it, and I moved my head to one side, and it flew behind me. So I've almost been the victim of this. I was almost knocked out by 2 liters of Tango Orange.
Well, to be fair, Billie Eilish, who is, a more modern day singer, but she is concerting around the world pretty regularly. She said, I've been getting hit on stage with things like this for the 6 years I've been. I don't know why people are acting like it's new, but for some reason recently people are getting excited. It's become dangerous. So the reason I brought this up was I remember Tim telling me about the soda bottle that almost took him out. But the other thing is, there was one with Cardi B, the rapper, and I don't know. I know Tim probably has she doesn't come off as someone that I feel like I'd want to throw anything at, you know what I mean? Just from the get-go. But recently it just happened. Somebody in the front row had a whole cup of like ice and threw it in with a drink in it and threw it in her face in the middle of her set. Just tossed it up there. She threw her microphone and hit him in the face. And I have to be honest, if you threw your soda on me like that, Tim, I might instinctively throw my microphone back at you too. I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't know how I would react.
Well, I mean, there's several layers to this. Like throwing things at people on stage is not cool at all.
No.
But if we take that piece out of it, throwing some ice water on someone is one thing. It might sting for 2 minutes. Throwing a wireless SM58 mic at somebody, I mean, you could I don't know, take an eye out.
Yeah, but to be fair, Tim, I understand your point, but what I'm getting at is I know who I am, and if I get stressed or frustrated, I could see me reacting very negatively to someone throwing something in my face. Do you know what I mean?
No, absolutely. And in the heat of the moment, I think I know nothing about Cardi B. I assumed for the longest time it was just some kind of backup cardigan affair when they were talking about Cardi B. I honestly, I had no idea.
The B option.
Yeah, that's what I just thought. It was like someone's grandma was looking for something to keep warm. It's like, no, I'll have the second one. And that was Cardi B. I mean, I have no idea. The first I heard of it really was this mic throwing incident. That's the first time I probably really heard of the name or known what Ms. B looks like. Yeah. It's fair to say, having watched that video, she does seem a little rough and ready. She doesn't have a lot of airs and graces about her from what I can see. That's
what I'm getting at, though. Like, the guy kind of... She's not someone I would throw a drink at. I mean, I would never throw a drink at anyone, period. Like, that's just common sense. And I don't understand why if someone's on stage, it gives people the right to do things like that. That makes no sense to me. And never once have I been in an audience, Tim, and thought, let me throw something at the person performing.
Yeah, I mean, I saw Tom Jones and people were throwing underwear at him, but I mean, that's something completely different. But no, you're right. I think the problem is people do it for attention because they film it and then they post it. And I think that's probably where it comes from.
Well, and see and I don't know anything about this singer. She's some modern day singer, but her name is Bebe Rexha. I'm sure that's not her legal name, but whatever. She was actually sent to the hospital recently because on June 18th, when she was singing, she was hit in the face with a phone. And so the guy like threw his phone at her and it busted her eye and she was bleeding. And I mean, she's not a rapper. I think she just does like pop music type person. Seems pretty normal to me, but he actually got in trouble. And when they said it, he had his thing was he had no intention of like hitting her with it. He was hoping she'd pick up the phone and then maybe give it back to him and he could get her number or take photos is what his lawyer said. I mean, he chucked it right at her. So it's kind of hard to tell, but that's what he claimed was his intention.
Yeah, that's not good. I mean, I mean, as somebody who's standing on a stage most weekends, I don't want things thrown at me.
But my thing is I just know me, Tim, and like I'm the kind of person like if I hurt myself, for example, let's say I bump my hip and get a bruise on my, you know what I mean, and you know that initial ow where you're just like. When I get hurt or I get injured, I almost get angry. I'm not angry like the way you think. I'm angry at myself for doing it because it feels stupid, but I get like a sense of anger instead of like a sadness, like crying. I tend to react very angry. My dad does it. I think it's genetic. I don't know. But like, so I fear that like if I were on stage and someone threw something at me, Tim, I'd be like lunging at them from off the stage and there'd be bodyguards pulling us apart. And I'm just waiting for that to happen one good time. And maybe people start throwing stuff at people. I don't know. But all I'm saying is I can't blame her. I might have reacted in the same way with the microphone, but you make a good point. It was just a drink versus a heavy microphone.
That's
she really
true, yeah.
hit the guy that hard though. He was fine.
Well, one thing I would say outside of the mic throwing incident, one thing that was on my radar from this is that she throws her wireless mic and it made no difference to the backing track or her vocals.
I noticed that too, but I was gonna let it go. Well, this one though. This is where I'll leave you, Tim. This is the one though that I don't even I don't even know what to do. And it's Pink, the singer Pink.
Mm-hmm.
And she was stunned. And I'm probably the only singer on this list that I'm looking at that Tim's relatively familiar with. A concert goer tossed a bag of what was the ashes of their dead mother at Pink on stage.
That's weird. I mean, unless the mother loved Pink and they wanted to put them on stage together for that one final time. But I don't know, that's weird. I mean, because you hear stories about people at Disney where their relatives want to be their ashes left at Disney, and they have a whole crew that deal with that at Disney. They have a whole protocol for that. So I don't, it could be something like that.
Well, and see, and my parents even at one point talked about being cremated. They no longer, they bought their gravestones now. They talked about it, and there's a beach they met at, Destin Beach in Florida, and they had discussed, throwing their ashes out at the beach. And I want to be cremated. So I get that. But on the flip side, basically, Pink said she just picked it up, looked paused, and asked, "Is this your mom?" And then went, "I don't know how I feel about this." Placed the bag down and just kept singing. And she said she never got clarification from the person why they did it. So I kind of thought the same thing. Maybe they were obsessed with Pink and that was their. But I also feel like you maybe could talk to Pink's people about that before you just like throw somebody's ashes at. What if the bag had opened or something, Tim? Like. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think ashes are a biohazard, but it's one step away from that. I don't want somebody's
ashes on. I don't particularly want that.
No.
So nobody throw your ashes at Tim when he's playing at the Moose Lodge and I don't know, Dublin next weekend.
Like I said, I had some dude show me a picture on the phone of a naked picture he'd drawn of himself, and that was weird enough. I don't want people's ashes thrown at me.
People are strange. All right, I will let Tim take it from here with his little opening pieces.
Okay, so I got a piece of music news, and Paul McCartney, 81-year-old Paul McCartney, rocking and rolling, and he is announcing a brand new tour. He is going to be touring Australia. He's bringing his Got Back tour to Australia. Apparently, it's been a while since he's been there. I think it's 6 years ago was the last time he went to Australia. Now, he, of course, a lot of these older chaps are not doing an absolutely massive 50, 60-day tour like they used to. And in fact, like Queen and Adam Lambert have said that they're going to Japan soon. And they say, we're touring Japan. And it's like 4 dates.
Yeah.
But, when you're up there in age, it's, the touring schedule obviously is a lot harder, especially when you're touring at that kind of level.
Well, they also don't need the money, so.
No, that's true. They're doing it just for fun. But Paul McCartney is going to Australia. He's playing Adelaide, Melbourne, Newcastle, Sydney, Brisbane, and Gold Coast. So it's very exciting that Paul is still touring. I mean, I thought his last US tour maybe would be his last tour, but no. He's getting on the road and he's getting back out there.
Did he give any reason why Australia? Just it's been a while?
Don't know. He said, don't know. I think he just wanted to play there.
He's like, I want to go to the beach. I don't know. Maybe he's like, it's sunny and I want to go to the beach.
Yeah. So, I mean, all of this is going to be happening in October and November. And I'm sure it's going to be great. But of course, if you wanted to go and see Paul, ticket prices are going to be absolutely absurd. You're going to have to sell your house to go and see him.
It's fine. I'll give up a kidney. Well, and us, like, especially since we're not in Australia, if we really wanted to go, Tim, we have to sell a kidney.
Oh, I mean, for the likes of us in the United States or our listeners in the UK, it's probably not practical. But it was more the fact that he had announced another tour more than the location. Yeah. Just from the last episode that we did, or not the last episode, a few episodes back, when we was talking about rock stars are still getting it done over 75. I mean, I'm so pleased that Paul is still rocking and still has the desire to do it.
I am too. I love that for him. And I'm sure and I know this is kind of weird, but I always enjoy when, as people get older, they still really spend time in doing things they love, because I think it keeps them young. Yeah,
I think if Paul stopped playing, that would be the end of him. And it was like Les Paul. When I saw legendary guitar inventor Les Paul at the Iridium. I saw him twice, and he was in his 90s on both occasions. And the second time I saw him, I think he was 97 or 96 or something like that. And his mind was as sharp as a tack. And it was doing that gig and playing and meeting people and jamming and all that stuff. That's what kept him going.
You got to have something to live for. That's all I can leave it at.
Absolutely. Okay, so that was that one piece of music news. Sadly, we have a couple of obituaries on this.
Well, that went the other way.
Yeah, absolutely. So we lost a couple of people in the last week. Firstly, we lost Tony Bennett. He was 96. And again, he was another one of these folks who was just like playing and gigging and making music all the way up to the end.
I will say, though, there was a really sweet, whether you like her or not, Lady Gaga did her tour with Tony Bennett not too long ago. There's this really sweet thing where I guess he had dementia at some point, Tim. I don't know if you knew that. And he had been kind of forgetting who Lady Gaga was. And they captured a moment where he remembered her and she had tears. It's a really cute video if you've never seen it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now I do love me some Tony Bennett though. And but yeah, I guess did he pass away from Alzheimer's disease? I know he had dementia of some form.
I think it was probably related to that. I mean, it said that he had Alzheimer's in 2016, or that's when he said that he started to suffer from that. But he carried on playing, and like you say, there was some struggles that he had with that, but he was still out there playing. I think the last gig he played was like 2021 or something like that. It was recent.
I saw him. He performed at one of the New Year's Eve shows, either this year or the year before that. I mean, it was not I will say it wasn't his greatest work, I wouldn't say, but he was up there performing. So kudos to him.
Well, we respect you, Mr. Tony Bennett. You left a fabulous legacy. You had 70 years of performing and playing great music that people loved, and people loved you. So respect to you, Tony Bennett.
Yep. I mean, I will never pass up a time to listen to the lady as a tramp.
Yeah, it's timeless music. I have a couple of Tony Bennett CDs that I got in a thrift shop, unsurprisingly. And I like that sort of croony big band type sound. It's very appealing to my ear.
He seems like someone and I'm not 100% sure because I don't go as much as Tim, but he feels like somebody you would find a lot of his albums in thrift stores.
Yeah, you find a few, not as many as you would think.
Well, there you go. All right. Well, what do you have anything? Oh, yeah, you have other obituaries.
Yeah,
for us.
we lost Sinead O'Connor this week. That was incredibly sad.
Well, and she's in her 50s, right?
She was only 56. I mean, she'd been mourning the death of her son for about the last year and a half, and I don't think she was in a good place from that. But I mean, such an icon. I mean, her Saturday Night Live performance and the statement that she made is legendary. And then you've got her, her album with the Prince song, Nothing Compares to You. I mean, there's so many things in her career that make her such an icon. And it's hard to think that she's gone already. She's only 56.
Well, and like you said, I was under the understanding she wasn't doing too great. It sounded like there was a lot of things happening in her life. And it's quite sad. But she left an influence on people, whether she knew she did or not. So...
Yeah, I think she probably did. I mean, I said she was an activist, she was a musician, a singer, a songwriter, and just an icon, really. And I was just very surprised. I was at work, and Hannah sent me a message, and she said Sinead O'Connor's dead. And I was like, "What?"
It was incredibly random, and I would almost say her activism is more influential than her music in some ways, because she was very, very forward with it. That was kind of her big thing, was her political activism. So.
Yeah, but almost to the point where it destroyed her career, because I said her at the peak of her fame on Saturday Night Live, she made a statement on live TV that she believed in, and it almost destroyed her career. But it was so important to her that she had to make that statement.
Yep. Sadly, and I'm sure that's weighed on her, but unfortunately, she wasn't one that I would think of, Tim. I hate to say this, we've talked about some of these artists who are getting older. I don't want to see any of them pass away, but she was completely random when I heard the news. She's just not one that comes to mind.
No, it was like when we lost George Michael. I remember when that happened, and it was like, what? I mean, I think he was in his 50s too, and it's not someone you expect. Yeah, like a Tony Bennett, incredibly sad, icon. But the guy's 96. I mean, it's inevitable. It's a fact of life. But for someone like this, it really just hits you hard.
It's a small world after all.
Absolutely.
Disney knew what they were doing, Tim. They come up with that one.
They did indeed. Okay, well let's put that sad news behind us and let's concentrate on the topic. Now, this week is my topic, and Joy doesn't know what I'm going to pick. And I decided after last week's episode where we had a soundtrack of your life with Saz, I found out lots of things about Saz I didn't know. Yeah. Even despite the fact I've known her for 20 plus years, I didn't know that she was a fan of progressive rock. So I decided to honor Saz on this episode, and I'm calling this one Progressive Rock Hits.
Of course. Very on brand.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through what is considered progressive rock. And then I've got a number of artists and the music, and I picked out some songs that are hopefully not too obscure, so at least you're going to know a little bit about them.
Yeah. There was only one or two. There was one particular song you and Saz both knew that I was lost on, but the rest I knew.
Yeah. Okay. So according to our friends at Wikipedia, progressive rock is a broad genre of rock music that primarily developed in the United Kingdom and the United States through the mid to late 60s. It's really progressive because it sort of abandons some of the pop sensibilities, and it sort of uses compositional techniques which are used in jazz or folk or classical music, which is where it seems to be more progressive. Because, like pop music and rock music is probably very simplistic in its basic form. But progressive rock maybe would go through different time signatures, go through different tempos. Maybe would use untraditional instruments in the instrumentation.
And it has different things kind of woven in it, is the way I imagine it.
Yeah, and sometimes a piece would have a story that goes through it, like a sort of concept album type thing. So that is what's considered progressive rock. I mean, there's sort of subgenres of that: progressive metal, progressive pop, but certainly progressive rock is the genre that most people would talk about.
Yes.
Okay, right. So I've created, as I said, a list of progressive rock bands and some hits of those progressive rock bands that I hope that you're going to know. So I'm going to start off with probably the most famous progressive rock band of all time, one that you certainly would have heard of, and that would be Pink Floyd.
Yes, I've heard of them.
Yes, I figured you probably would have. Now, at the very beginning of their career with Syd Barrett as the sort of creative force behind the band, they were a lot more progressive than what they turned into. And certainly if you compare Syd Barrett era Pink Floyd to, say, their last album, The Division Bell, I mean, one is sort of kind of like soft pop rock and the other is just like completely wacky and out there. But they are considered sort of the premier prog rock band, if you like. So I decided to take something sort of from their main career catalog as a song for discussion, and that would be Shine On You, Crazy Diamond.
So I have a very specific memory with this song, and it's not going to come as a shock to anybody that it really has nothing to do with the song, but I had a friend who was obsessed with Pink Floyd, and she had this as her ringtone, and every time... but it was just like the text message tone. So like just the little shine on you, you crazy diamond. You've caught the confessions of your childhood, whatever that part is.
Yeah.
It would just play that. And she would get so many text messages. Like every time I was with her, and it was before we all kept our phones on silent. You remember back in the day when we actually had ringtones, and now we all keep our phones on silent because no one cares anymore. And so her phone was always on, and she had the same ringtone for, like, I swear to you, 4 years. The only other one I remember her have is the other Pink Floyd song about the fishbowl.
Wish you were here.
Yeah, the most cliche one. And it was just the part about the fishbowl, or it was the Shine on You. And I got to the point where every time I heard that, I think my eye actually started to twitch. But do you remember when we actually had like ringtones on our phones, Tim?
Yeah, because it was before you could sort of just assign anything you want to an alert. Because there was a whole market for purchasing ringtones. Mm-hmm. You know, the cellular carriers would have this thing where you could text a code to something, and then it would charge so many pounds or dollars back to your thing, and then they would send you the ringtone, and you could put it on your phone. And then especially when it got into real tones, and the real tones were actual clips of real music, and people were super into that. Now, unsurprisingly, I've had the theme to Knight Rider as my ringtone since I was born, probably.
Of course. Even before birth, actually, when the dinosaurs had cell phones and Tim was riding them.
Absolutely.
I have a horror story about ringtones. So when I was in high school, was the hot of ringtones as we know it, and everybody wanted them. And I got this, I don't remember. I think it was like a Sony Ericsson or something. It was one of the first ones that actually had an external, you know what I mean? A micro SD card that you could put something in and actually put songs on it. Mm-hmm. And I remember I got so annoyed when I first got it because it kept reformatting itself. But anyway, I finally got it figured out. And that's how old technology was at this point. I thought it'd be really great to put a certain song by Mercy Playground as my ringtone, Tim. Mm-hmm. You could guess what song that was.
Yes.
And guess what part it was? The chorus where he's talking about smelling things. It went off in church when everybody was praying.
Oh, dear.
So everybody went silent in my church to pray, and you hear I smell from there. In case we have kids listening to this episode. Yeah, that happened once.
Oh, dear.
And I learned my lesson about what you make your ringtone, Tim.
Well, you know, the 1982 Stu Phillips composition is timeless and suitable for all ages.
Yes, and now my phone stays on silent. I did have for a while, though, the Dropkick Murphys, I'm shipping up to Boston. Hey, I remember that was my ringtone for a while, too.
Yeah. I'm a straight down the line Knight Rider. That's it. It'll always be that.
But yeah, I always see people talk about their horror stories of ringtones, and I'm like, I don't know. I think I got you all beat. You could have heard a pin drop in the middle of that Sunday service.
Yeah, you could have heard people breathing.
There was and no one wanted, and my mom didn't move. Her body language was so much like she wouldn't look at me. There was no movement. And I just leaned. I think she was silent. She didn't say a word to me I don't even think she ever brought it up. I learned my lesson probably out of sheer embarrassment. But anyway, so there's my story on ringtones. And back to the song. Watch what you put as your ringtone. And if your friends are around, they might have to listen to the same chorus on repeat 3,700 times. There you go. That's my word of wisdom there.
It's fabulous. Okay, well, let's move on to the next progressive rock hit. Now, this is Genesis, and I've picked the track Invisible Touch, which is one of their 80s songs, which I'm sure is one that you're familiar with. And they sort of fully moved away from their prog rock roots as they got later on into their career. Now, as you know, the original singer was Peter Gabriel, and Phil Collins was the drummer. And they were very proggy at the beginning. And then you had Peter Gabriel on stage wearing animal masks and capes and all this songs about Dungeons and Dragons type stuff. And then at some point, Peter Gabriel leaves this world and then has this effectively pop career. I mean, he did some things with world music and other things like that, but effectively he had a pop career. And then Phil Collins got from behind the drum kit and fronted it and then turned it into a pop rock band. I mean, they still had progressive elements, and even some of their very popular albums like Invisible Touch have tracks on there which sort of go back to their prog rock roots, but they seem to almost fully pull away from that kind of prog business.
So I think you're right. So I know what you're talking about. When I think of Peter Gabriel, kind of Invisible Touch Genesis, and I think of modern Genesis. They're two different bands. Like, I don't even think of them as the same band, and I listen to them for different like reasons, right?
Sure.
Like, and in Invisible Touch, I remember like you're right, they were kind of wacky, and they wore like, you know, wacky clothes, and they're always pictured doing stuff. And like Genesis always had like some type of kind of looks like Comic Sans type writing, right? So I can see what you're saying. Invisible Touch, I guess I don't know if I wouldn't have thought of it as progressive rock, but the more you say it, the more I kind of hear how it's like pop mixed with other things.
Yeah, I mean, I think they brought those elements into their pop hits, but at some point, sort of, their output was pretty much straight down the middle pop rock. But as I said, if you delve deep into the albums, there are some songs that sort of hark back to that kind of progressive roots.
Well, and as I was saying, physically, there was some wacky there, and there was some wacky in the music and just different and playing with different things. I think is what I'm getting at. Is they seem kind of playing with different elements that I feel like I associate with pop rock. That's how I'd say progressive rock. But I think, and maybe, I don't know if I'm the only person who thinks of it, but I think of Peter Gabriel Genesis and Phil Collins Genesis as completely different bands. They're not the same.
No, 100%. I mean, like if you look at other famous bands that have changed their singer, Bon Scott, for example, and Brian Johnson, AC/DC, yes, they're different, and the feel is slightly different, but it's effectively the same thing, really. But, you know, the songs are different. Or even if you compare Van Halen and Van Hagar, yes, they're very distinct, different eras, but it's the same idea, really. But like if you look at, like you say, Peter Gabriel and Phil Collins Genesis, they're completely different bands.
Yeah. And that's okay. I like both of them, but I listen to them for different reasons. I find Phil Collins to be a completely musical genius across the board at everything he does, down to the Disney music. There's always these jokes on TikTok about the Disney music where it's like he didn't have to go that hard. It was just a song for a Disney movie. And then it's like the Tarzan song with the drum. You know what I mean? Like You'll Be in My Heart, stuff playing in the background. I find him to be just exquisite. But I find Peter Gabriel to be a little bit more interesting sometimes and a little bit more fun. I mean, it's just the truth.
Yeah, there was a Peter Gabriel live concert. We had Netflix a number of years ago, then we cancelled it, and then Hannah got it again because there was some anime cartoon on there that she was interested in. So we now have Netflix again. But there was a Peter Gabriel concert on there, and it was from the sort of era of the album So it was all the hits, you know, your Sledgehammers and Don't Give Up and all that type of stuff on there. And what an amazing production. Not only was, you know, every musician in the band was superb, and Peter Gabriel was such a great singer and performer, but the whole production piece was amazing.
Yeah, it's very stage show-esque. Like he's almost putting on a stage show in a way.
Yeah, very similar to what sort of Madonna and artists of that ilk did later on. I don't know if he was seen as a pioneer in that respect.
It's possible. I've never really thought about it, but yeah, I could see him. Like if I'm going to a concert for him, I feel like you're going to have more fun. Whereas if you're going to the Phil Collins side of it, it's probably going to be more soul inspiring. Yeah,
there was a cool bit as the concert closed. He walked on stage with a suitcase and he laid it on the stage and he opened it up. Then one by one, each member of the band went up to the suitcase, then sort of walked into the suitcase because there was a staircase underneath it, but they sort of walked in it and waved, and everyone done that. And then at the end of it, he picks the suitcase up and he can barely carry it, and he's like waves everyone off and then walks off the stage. It was just, you know, it was just fantastic to see.
I've seen that scene. That was from a concert they did. Oh my gosh, I've seen that scene before. I don't know, it was on YouTube or something, people talking about. That's so cool.
Yeah, if it's still out, I'll have to find out what it's called, but it's from that kind of peak era of him.
All right, well, what's our next song, Tim?
Okay, so again, this is another band that started off incredibly progressive, and then as they got into the 80s, they still were of that sort of ilk, but, you know, had a little bit more of a pop sensibility. And this is Yes from their album 90125, and this is Owner of a Lonely Heart. Now, this is Trevor Rabin era Yes, which is slightly, you know, more poppy than some of that early stuff. You get like Roundabout and stuff, which is very progressive, but this is more of a kind of a poppy chart hit, but it has got some different sections to it, which does lend itself to the world of prog rock.
I would say I would agree with that because I don't know that it's necessarily in my mind a pop hit, but it is definitely an earworm. I can guarantee you, if you hear "Owner of a Lonely Heart," much better. It's an earworm, Tim. It's like 110%. That song will be in my head for the next 6 weeks. And it's one of those songs that randomly pops up in my head that I haven't heard in a long time. And it's just the chorus. It's just that part. It's there forever.
Yeah. And it did appear in a Knight Rider episode, obviously, so that makes it great. But one thing that it has, there's a breakdown in the middle, which is like a clean arpeggiated guitar. Mm-hmm. And a lot of like guitar magazines and guitar forums and stuff I've read say that's the best clean chorus guitar sound ever recorded. I don't know what it was recorded on, but it's just so clear and crisp. I don't know. It's good.
I've never really thought about it, but now I want to go back and listen to it. I think Yes is one of those bands that I got one time roasted because I think I said I kind of thought of them as like a 3-hit hero or like 3 songs from them. And then a bunch of people commented on me on Twitter and were like, they have like 7 songs.
No, they have hundreds of songs and lots of albums, but it's certainly from an accessibility perspective and what songs that are played on classic rock radio, you've got Roundabout and then you've got Owner of a Lonely Heart and probably a couple of others.
I know, but it's just not a band I think about unless I'm thinking of the Owner of a Lonely Heart song. But I mean, I'm just going to be honest with you.
There we are.
Sorry if you're a big Yes fan. Don't come for me again. You already did that one.
Yeah.
I don't know what episode it was, but you're one of our Australian listeners, and then a few other people were commenting and talking about Yes as a band and telling me I needed to expand my Yes horizon.
There we go.
Which I totally did.
I'd like to think you went on a deep dive Yes discography mission.
Absolutely. I'm an expert now. All right, let's move along. Don't want to surprise anybody with my Yes knowledge.
Okay. Well, let's hope you don't offend any of our Canadian friends, because this is maybe the greatest rock band ever to come out of Canada, or certainly progressive rock band that's ever to come out of Canada. And this is from the album Permanent Waves, and this is Rush with Spirit of Radio.
No, I love Rush. I don't think of them as 2-hit wonders. I mean, they're one of those bands that I feel like is vastly underrated, though. But then there's like this subculture of people who are obsessed with them. Do you know what I mean? Like in the general pop list, I don't feel like you hear people talking about Rush all the time. But from what I get on the internet is there is a huge underbelly of people obsessed with them. Yeah,
I mean, because the popular songs, you got your Tom Sawyer, your Spirit of Radio, etc. But yes, people love Rush, especially Canadian fans absolutely love Rush. And all of those albums that they've put out dozens of albums. And then again, their albums go through many different genres, but eras of music. They've sort of adapted as the times have changed. Yeah. I mean, you see their stage shows and you see live videos, and people just love it so much. Yeah. Charlie's a big Rush fan. My husband, he loves that kind of sound. He's probably more than I am. So I've listened to a lot of their albums. He's got a few on vinyl that he likes to play. But that's what I get there's a very hardcore subset of people who are obsessed with Rush. Yeah. And then the thing is, they have a great sense of humor, too. Because, like any normal rock stage, if you will, there's always a wall of amplifiers behind the guitar player and the bass player. Whether they're connected up or not is beside the point. But, that's part of the rock and roll contract, is you have a wall of amplifiers behind you. Of course. Now, Rush were pioneering of going direct, which is what I do. You don't use an amplifier on stage. You plug directly in the PA and you have it coming back through ear monitors or monitors on stage or something. So you eliminate the need for that stuff. So they eliminated it, and they're like, well, the stage looks really empty. What are we going to do? So one of their tours, they had stacked up washing machines with amazing microwave ovens on the top for a while. And then I think maybe not the last tour they did, or the tour they did before that, they had chicken roasting things like you'd get in a supermarket, and they'd have roadies come out every now and again. And they'd put new chickens in them. And they said at the end of the shows, everyone just ate chickens. That's funny. I mean, I love that.
That's like one of those ongoing things that you just wait to go to the next concert to see what they put on their stage. It's just a little piece. Love that.
Yeah, and they did a tour where like all of the stage set was like had a sort of a steampunk type of feel about it. Yeah. And then they had steampunk themed washing machines.
Of course. There's tons of steel kind of pieces in there. I get it.
Yeah, it was all like with brass and wood and stuff. I don't know. It's just that I appreciate the level of detail for humor like that.
I love that. And it's always funny whenever sometimes I feel like as a society, especially with musicians, and I'm going to get hate for this, but sometimes we take it all a little too seriously.
Yeah, there's a Pete Townsend quote where he says rock and roll is very, very, what did he say? It's very, very important and very, very ridiculous.
It really is. But that's kind of the point. It's supposed to bring you out of your, you know what I mean, your shell, and the ridiculousness of it's what makes it amazing. But sometimes I feel like we get so stuck on like what's so serious, we forget that.
Absolutely. Okay, well, let's move on to another prog rock act. Now, this is one I don't know whether you would have necessarily heard of, but I'm going to say it anyway. This is Marillion with their song Kaylee.
Absolutely nothing. Are you speaking English? Never heard those words before. All right, tell me about Kaylee.
Well, Marillion were a progressive rock band from the UK. Their lead singer was a gentleman called Fish.
Oh, well, I just makes me think of the band Fish, but I doubt it's related.
No, it's not. And their sort of big chart hit probably was Kaylee, and they also had a song called Lavender as well. Again, it's interesting. Another artist that a lot of UK listeners would know straight off that did nothing here.
I would be curious to see if any of our US listeners would use those. And it doesn't surprise me though, but it does at the same time. Because, we kind of assume that we're all very universal at this point. And with every song being available on the internet, you know what I mean? I feel like we would click upon it sometime.
Well, bearing in mind this was 80s that they were probably at their peak. I think they're still out there playing. Fish isn't the singer anymore. But their sort of greatest success was that album which had Kaylee and Lavender on it. But back then, it was hard to sort of share this kind of music. But, now it's incredibly easy. It makes you wonder whether artists now universally make it on both sides of the Atlantic.
Yeah, I don't know. But I have read there is some things about just certain musicians sell better here. And great example of an artist that people are shocked to find this out about was Elton John actually still swears he owes his career to America, not the UK. He was popular in America before he was in the UK. And you would have just assumed since he's British, you know what I mean, Tim? That's where he would have started, but not necessarily. I don't know. But I had to keep myself from making jokes when you said Fish is no longer the singer. I would be like, oh, is it Octopus now or something? But I didn't do it. But
I don't think Fish is his real name. I'm going to look up. Let's have a look. Let's give this a Google right now. Fish singer.
You're just going to get a bunch of pictures of singing Fish. Is it Phspish?
No, just Fish. Fish.
Oh.
So
never mind.
His name is Derek William Dick.
Okay, I see why you guys find it. Oh, Derek.
Yeah. There we are. There we are, Mr. Dick, otherwise known as Fish.
I would have changed my name too. All right. What's the next song? That was funny.
Okay, so this is a band which I'm assuming you're familiar with, the Moody Blues.
I am familiar with them, yes.
Yep, and I'm going with the track Nights in White Satin, which is an absolute classic from the Moody Blues. Now, I've purchased a few of their early works on record when I was thrifting records, and it's very proggy. And you start looking into sort of influential prog rock bands, and the Moody Blues are often spoken about.
That's funny. I mean, yeah, I guess they are. I mean, the Nights in White Satin song, did somebody do a remake of that too as well? Or is it only their version I'm thinking of? I feel like there was a remake of that song as well, but it's very it kind of intertwines pop meets rock meets blues.
Yeah, I mean that's the power of Justin Hayward, the singer of the Moody Blues. I mean, you're familiar with the War of the Worlds album. Are you familiar with that? Have we covered that before?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and he has that track on there, Forever Autumn. And it's and that's kind of proggy in a way, I suppose, the War of the Worlds, the Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds. But, Justin Hayward is such a talented singer and such a unique voice. And I was lucky a number of years ago, I saw War of the Worlds being performed live in Cardiff in Wales. Myself and Hogg, who's been a guest on our show, went down to Wales to see that show. And Justin Hayward was actually singing in the performance that night. And, I've seen him perform live, and he has such a good voice.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that. And I think that you're right. I think that that's what sells it. It's very smooth, ironically, and the song's about satin. So it all works. His voice matches the song.
Yeah, he was performing in Charlotte or somewhere like that not that long ago. And we contemplated going, but again, it's also so much the ticket price, but it's just like you have to travel so far for everything because none of these acts ever come around here anymore.
Yeah, they don't. And you have to travel, you have to take gas into effect, food, all that.
Yeah, it soon adds up. I mean, the tickets were, in modern relative terms, not too bad, and maybe $100 or less. But like you say, by the time you stick a hotel room in there and your gas and your food and the this and the that, it just racks up.
We really need a petition. If any of our listeners would like to do this for me and Tim, to get a good concert stage near Christiansburg, Virginia.
Well, we have them. That's the thing. We have Roanoke. We have the Civic Center. We have the Performing Arts Center.
That's true.
It's just that none of these big acts come this way.
Who do we need to call? Don't say Ghostbusters.
Well, I do know. Well, I did hear
Ray Parker Jr.
Well, I did hear today that Melissa Etheridge is coming to Dr. Pepper Park.
Ooh, that would be one I want to go see. And I am going to go see Nick Carter from the Backstreet Boys with my friend, the one you sent me. Mm-hmm. We're going to go see him, which I've seen the Backstreet Boys live before, but this is just him. Me and my friend Whitney are going because that's going to be in Roanoke. Every once in a while, I saw the one member left of the YMCA. Yes, Tim, of the YMCA, of the Village people. I'm trying to think of the last concert I saw in Roanoke. It probably was the Village people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's probably the last one. BB Mac and a few other kind of 90s pop artists were there last weekend.
Yeah, I mean, there was a big local band playing there last weekend when it was 97 degrees when I was setting up. I'm just saying.
I mean, yeah, we forgot about that tip. I forgot. The big bands do go, specifically the band Tips.
Did I tell you, Joy, about the wood boring bees?
No.
So we played this place in Roanoke, and it's off Williamson Road, which makes no sense to anyone who doesn't live around here, but that's beside the point. And it's just like a bar restaurant type thing. And then at the back, they have a purpose-built stage, and it has a really nice, huge canopy over it, like a wooden, frame canopy type thing with a roof. And they actually have AstroTurf in front of it. And the AstroTurf came from some US football ball sport type thing. They did tell me where it came from, but it doesn't. It's from
sports balls, all the sports.
Yeah, the Houston Dodgers or something. I don't know, the Dallas something or other. I don't know, but they came in, and they were very pleased to say that this sheet of AstroTurf came from some stadium, from some sports team. That's beside the point. But we set up and we was playing, and it was stinking hot. It's what I call a 3 t-shirt gig. Like you turn up, you start unloading your car. Your t-shirt is completely drenched with sweat. You put one on in the first set, at the end of the first set, it's the same. And then by the time you get into the second set, you're on t-shirt 3. And if you're lucky, it won't be damp driving home. It's just, that's TMI, but that's what it's like when you're playing in 90 plus degrees outside.
Yeah, I get it.
Anyhow, we was in the second set and we're playing away and it looked like snow coming down. And I thought, well, we've had some wacky weather recently. It's maybe not outside the realm of possibility when it's 90 plus degrees, but it was just tinkling down like snow. I thought, what is that? And then it was sort of landing on my stage monitor, and it was landing on the stage, and then it didn't melt because obviously it's not snow because it's so hot. And then the singer Bill's looking at it. He's looking at it funny, and I'm looking at it funny. And it carried on for, quite a while. It did it a little bit all the way through the second set. So we finish, we play our encore number, And I thought, I went to look at what it was. And then someone who was in the audience, probably one of the same men who would decapitate a snake, because, men know these things in audiences, apparently. And he said, oh, yeah. He said, I saw the wood boring bees up there. And apparently it was some of these bees boring holes in the wood to make a nest.
Huh. I wouldn't have thought that. Random.
Yeah, the only concern with that is that canopy thing going to collapse at some point.
Yeah, and all these bees are just going to fall on me.
Yeah, I'm gonna be one day there playing a gig and the whole roof thing's just going to fall off.
So what you're saying is don't let me anywhere near the stage because it will collapse on you and me while I'm there.
I'm going to tell you exactly where the venue is off the edge, and you're not to drive within 10 miles of it.
The bees will what was it Charlie was talking about earlier? We were having this conversation about, he said something about karma. And I said, but I'm a good person. Karma doesn't get me. And he said, he was talking about falling or something. He goes, somehow you'll fall on and you'll just fall over and bruise your hip or something. I don't know. He was saying something and he was like, karma's going to get you. Be careful. And I was like, karma doesn't get me. I'm a good person. Ish. And he was like, yeah, but you've got a hex, so it counteracts the goodness. There's a hex over you that creates all these weird things that happen to you, Joy. That counteracts all the goodness you do in the world. And that's how my life balances. It's what Charlie explained it earlier. And I was like, thank you, I think. Anyway, so there you go. But yes, I won't go anywhere near the bees.
Yeah, as I said, I'll give you the address when we finish, and just don't. In fact, I wouldn't even pull off any of the Roanoke exits if I was you. Only on 81, just drive straight past them.
Yeah, I'll just avoid that. I mean, I have no plans. I mean, I was going to go to Sam's Club this weekend. Is that okay?
I mean, that's right by the airport. I think you'll be fine.
I need to load up on some snacks. I'll have you know, Tim, and this is not an ad, but I bought a thing of trash bags at Sam's Club a year and a half ago, and I'm still using the same bag box. I have not had to buy trash bags in a very long time. That
sounds like our pandemic supply of toilet paper. So we were not one of these people who went to the supermarket and hoarded toilet paper. No, we don't do that because guess what? We never buy anything that we can't buy on Amazon elsewhere. So if it's non-food and you can get it from Amazon, it comes from Amazon. So Hannah has this subscribe and save thing set up where you decide how much you want to have and then they ship it to you at regular intervals and you get a discount because you buy it routinely. Yeah. Now, completely coincidentally to the toilet paper crisis of 2020, we ended up with about 5 or 6 boxes. By boxes, I mean the cases that you ship to a retailer, the big boxes that they deliver. We ended up with about 5 or 6 of those over the top because just due to bad planning, basically. So, she adjusted the order and stuff like that. So they were still shipping this stuff on a, monthly basis and what have you. But we had boxes and boxes and boxes of it. And her parents were saying, oh, we can't go get any toilet paper in Walmart. I was like, yeah, what do you want? 2 cases? We'll bring them round.
You guys just started drive outside of your house. Here you go.
Exactly. So only recently, I mean, what are we in? August 2023, we've only recently sort of got the stock level down.
No, I don't know how many trash bags were in this box, but I swear to you, it's been a year and a half since I went to Sam's Club, and we are still actively using the same thing of trash bags. Now, I will say you have to be careful. There are some things you want to stock up on, and there are some things you don't. Because you could really overspend if you're not careful. Because this is obviously a finance podcast, and me and Tim are going to give you recommendations. But trash bags is one. Toilet paper is a good one that I would say you could just keep using basically for the rest of your life.
Exactly. I mean, we're not NPR's Planet Money or anything, but we can try and give you some good financial advice. If it's a perishable, you shouldn't be stocking up on it. A non-perishable, if you've got the space, just stock up on it.
Speaking of that, there was this one time. And I don't know if you know what this is, Tim, but when you get hibachi or whatever, that yum sauce they put on it. Do you know what I'm talking about? So I like to get the vegetarian hibachi a lot, and I love the tofu bits in it, and they give you the yum sauce. Well, I bought some thinking I was going to use it at home. Guess what I didn't do? I used 3 drops out of it once and it went bad. So we went to Sam's Club and I looked at Charlie and I was like, oh, I need to get more yum yum sauce. It went bad. He goes, so your tiny bottle went bad. So now you're going to buy this 32 ounce. He's like, no. But I was like, you're right. You're right. That's an example of when your brain logic should kick in.
Yeah, if you're using yum yum sauce on every meal every day, buy the big container. But if your tiny little rinky dink one went bad, yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, sometimes he's more logical than I am. But anyway, this is a music podcast. I don't know how we start talking about Sam's Club, but what's the next song?
Okay. So the next one is from the album Breakfast in America. This is Supertramp, and I've picked The Logical Song.
The Logical Song. Oh, that's a good choice. I haven't really thought about that in a while, though. Supertramp is one of those bands that I have went down the rabbit hole of many times. Mm-hmm. Like, I forget they exist, and then I'm like, I'll hear like Breakfast in America or something, and I'll be like, oh yeah, Supertramp. And then I'll go down the rabbit hole again. But then I forget they exist.
Yeah, the whole of the album Breakfast in America is absolutely superb. You know, from beginning to end, it's as a work, it really should be enjoyed like that because it is so good. I had a orange crush colored vinyl copy of this. It was some Facebook ad a number of years ago, and it was Rhino Records or something. And it was not super expensive. It was $40, 35 or something. And I bought it and it came. And actually, the pressing was not good. The sound quality of the pressing was not good. I mean, it was brand new, but when you played it, it's like, yeah, it could be better. Anyhow, I hung on to that for a number of years until I decided I wanted to liquidate a good chunk of my vinyl collection. And I find out that this reissue pressing is incredibly rare. And I put it on eBay and I got over $100 for it.
Well, there's that one album. I have a very personal thing that makes me angry about Supertramp. There's one album that's called like something of crime, Queens of Crime or something. I don't know. It's not their third album. It's something called Crime. And the reason it stands out to me was there was the show based off of a book. I love the book, The Pretty Little Liars, the book. And then there's a TV show called Pretty Little Liars. And it's a mystery, of course, right? Mm-hmm. And so on the show, when you're trying to figure out who the bad guy is, which is A, spoiler alert, if you're not through the season, I'm not really going to tell you who it is, but I give away a clue, so skip like 15 seconds ahead. There's a scene where they're like showing the guy that you're trying to figure out who they are, and he starts playing a Supertramp's album, and it's the Queen Crime of something. I don't know, it's like their third album. Mm-hmm. And I thought, because, I was thinking Supertramp, I was like, okay, 60s, 70s, this is probably an older character, right? I was wrong. I was a younger character. I still don't understand how that clue added up. It still doesn't add up. And no way would I have pegged the person who was to be a Supertramp fan. And I still am mad about that clue because I spent a lot of time devising that they had to be someone probably at least in their 30s. And I had dedicated to the show and it had nothing to do with anything. It just coincidence. And then there's a section where there's a not Patti LaBelle, I Go Walking After Midnight, the country song. Patti Loveless?
Probably. I'm not super
whatever her
familiar.
name is. That one also was a song in it. And I was like, okay, then it definitely has to be someone old. It wasn't. They weren't old at all, Tim.
Well, you never know. Lots of people, fictional or otherwise, like different music. You just can't tell what someone's into.
I know, but in theory, in my brain, I thought they were trying to give me a clue. Because I love a good mystery, and I will dedicate a lot of time trying to figure them out. There you go. I also bought the subscription to the, there's like these Find a Killer kind of like subscription box. Have you ever seen that, Tim, Find a Killer?
Yeah, I've seen those.
I was a member for a while, but then I got bored of it and I had to unsubscribe because I've got a whole stack of them in my closet that I never figured out who the murderer was. But anyway, in theory, it sounds good, but you have to find a lot of people to do it with you or it gets boring really quick.
Yeah. And then that's the thing. They hook you in with these subscription boxes because they think you're going to forget to cancel it. That's what it is.
And I had it for 6 more months. And Charlie's like, okay, if one more of those boxes gets stacked up in this closet, cancel. Oh, well.
Well, good deal. Well, let me do a couple more of these progressive rock hits. So this is from a genre which is sort of moves slightly away from progressive rock. It's probably progressive metal, if anything.
Okay.
And this is from the album Empire. And this is Queensryche with the song Silent Lucidity.
That is a song, first of all, Charlie loves, which doesn't come as a shock to anybody who's listening to this podcast. Somebody's going to put that on the bingo card. Oh, another dramatic song that Charlie likes. So I've heard it many times. It's also a song that I feel like was a radio hit for like 5 minutes and then disappeared.
Yeah, it was featured famously on that, I think it's 1991 MTV Music Video Awards, the one that Van Halen opened. Metallica was on that concert, but also Queensryche where they performed Silent Lucidity. So it's one of those sort of songs that's burned in my brain because it brings back that time when I discovered Van Halen and watched the MTV Awards and we had satellite TV and all that kind of stuff.
I want my MTV. There's all these MTV sweaters at Walmart now, Tim, that like have the branding on it. I've had to back away of not buying like 37 of them because they're all the old 80s ones that were in the commercials. Mm-hmm. It's a big one right now.
I still think with MTV, I still think there's a market for MTV Classic. It wouldn't really cost a lot to put together. Mm-mm. You could rerun all the old programs and idents of old MTV. You could bring back some of the old VJs to do sections on the thing and play lots of like videos of the era. I think that would be super popular.
I mean, I could see that. They did that with VH1 basically. VH1 did a lot of those old things.
Yeah, call it MTV Classic. I mean, how much is it going to cost to set up? I mean, you could record all the VJ segments in an afternoon and you could run it for months.
Well, and I feel like nostalgia is at like an all-time high right now. So right now would be the market to do it. Like I'm saying, all the shirts were there. But yeah, I don't know. Tim, Who do you write? Where's the marketed execs?
Well, it's Viacom own the brand name to MTV, but I mean, I don't know. It just seems like a huge oversight. I would watch that. I never watched live TV, but I would watch that. You know, put MTV on in the background, MTV Classic playing all the great videos. I don't know. How do I make that happen?
You call a guy who calls a guy who calls a guy, and now you write them on X. Not Twitter.
Oh, goodness me. I mean, how to destroy your brand value. I mean,
I'm sorry, Tim. I have to laugh because I saw this comedian today and it said, of course, he named it X. It's like something that keeps popping up on my phone that won't leave me alone anymore, like my ex.
Oh, dear.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. How do you destroy your brand?
Yeah, I mean, because, he bought this thing for so many billions of dollars that he's meddled about with it and sort of halved its value. Now, if you was going to sell that on to someone else right now, it's almost worthless because Twitter is such an iconic name. I mean, even tweet and retweet are in the Oxford English Dictionary. And you just completely destroy it. The bird logo is iconic. It's globally, it has recognition. And you're just going to get rid of that because he's got this thing about the letter X. It just makes no sense.
Well, and they remember Vines. Do you remember Vines, like whenever they first came out, it was like 30-second little videos or whatever, 15 seconds or something. I wasn't big in Vine, but I know what it was. And it's kind of like the predecessor to TikTok, I would kind of visualize. But didn't a guy buy Vine and specifically buy it just to shut it down? Didn't that happen?
It wouldn't surprise me. I remember it came and then it went all of a sudden.
There was a guy who bought Vine, and I don't know who he was, some older rich dude, of course, who bought it and basically said he just bought it to shut it down. And that's kind of what I almost equate to what Elon Musk is doing. I feel like he just hated Twitter so much that he bought it just to shut it down. Yeah, in a weird, messed up way.
Yeah, I mean, there's the element. This is works on several levels. He's either a genius and he knows exactly what he's doing. He's either
I'm past that idea.
Yeah, or he's completely winging it and playing with it because he's rich and he doesn't care. Or he thought for fun he'd just buy it, play with it, and destroy it and then close it.
That's what I think. That's what I think he did. I think that he got frustrated because like, remember, he got in a lot of hot water for some of the stuff he said on there. And it was right in the height of the president who will not be named got in some trouble. And Elon kind of said, freedom of speech should be okay. And I feel like he just got frustrated with the whole process of it. He bought it, wants to mess around with it and watch it burn. That's my theory.
Yeah, it's just weird for something that's so incredibly iconic and used by so many people and formerly loved by so many people. I mean, I'm still on it. I mean, there's a rich music community still on there for now. I am making a prediction that as soon as this Threads gets all the various features, I think a lot of people are going to jump ship. A lot already have.
I think so too.
But whilst the music community is still on Twitter, I'm still hanging in there. But I mean, it doesn't have a lot of longevity. And the other problem is that the logo looks like some kind of adult website. I mean, it's almost like you see it flashes up on your phone with an X on it, and it's like, do you want your coworkers to see that?
Well, and see, I didn't even know he had did it yet, and I had like a little X notification on my phone, and I was like, I closed out thinking it was like, you know what I mean, like some random thing I'd accidentally gave permission to, give me a notification. Like, I was like, what the heck is that? Like a game or something? I clicked an ad. You know how like you can do that and then you start getting the notifications. Play Slot Master 74 or whatever on your phone. And so that's what I thought I did. And it was only later until I found out that he renamed it that I was like, oh, that's why there was an X on my phone. Like, that's how bad the branding is. Like, I had no association with it. I thought it was spam.
Yeah, and for a lot of casual users who maybe would use it occasionally, they would try and see where the Twitter logo's gone on their phone and see it's X and like, oh, I'm not using that. And then that'd be the end of that.
Well, like I said, he did it with no announcement, letting people know it's going to happen. He just did it. So I wasn't expecting this X. And the ironic part is the Xfinity app, Tim's looking. Look at the Xfinity app.
It's almost identical.
So for a second, I didn't even realize it was there because I thought I used to have Xfinity at the old house. And so I thought it was just my Xfinity app.
Yeah, I mean, what I would have done if you've got this thing about this X, like Meta, call the company X, and then the messaging element is called Twitter because it's so recognizable. But I don't know. I mean, people say he's playing 4D chess, and then I just think he's just winging it.
I'm so tired of hearing of these geniuses who are playing 4D chess. I've heard that term a few times in some people that we will not name. And I'm like, no, they're not. They're not, Tim.
I think one thing that Elon Musk has done very well is he often hires very good and very intelligent people, and then he sets things up like SpaceX and Tesla and stuff. And the reason that SpaceX is so successful is there's several layers of management between him and the stuff that gets done. And there's a person over SpaceX, and she runs it, and she does a really good job, and she keeps him out of the day-to-day.
See, and Tim can tell you from firsthand experience that we will not name, sometimes whenever you put the wrong person or you get this really smart person at the top and the people underneath them start disappearing, you realize the person at the top really doesn't know much and the people underneath them were the ones doing all the work to make it all happen.
Absolutely.
Have you ever worked at a place where that has happened? You'll see very quickly when the people start falling off, you'll learn, oh, these were the people that were actually making everything happen. That's why, as an HR manager, always respect your middle managers and your employees.
There we are. See, that's a life lesson from Joy.
Yeah. Anyway, speaking from experience. All right.
Well, let me do one more progressive rock here. I've got a lot more, and I will publish the rest of them in this progressive rock hits Spotify playlist. Which, when you're listening to this on your podcast platform, and then you go into the episode notes, you'll see a link, and they will be just in there, so you can enjoy it. But let's just close out with this one. So this is Procol Harum with the song Whiter Shade of Pale. Now, Procol Harum came up on a lot of the lists of progressive rock bands. I wouldn't have necessarily thought of them really as a progressive rock band, but a lot of people saw them as sort of progressive pioneers.
I mean, I feel like, I don't know that I would have either, Tim. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think I would have. But I guess I'm trying to see it, maybe because their lyrics are a little bit, they have some depth to their lyrics.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, the Whiter Shade of Pale lyrics are very, very deep. I mean, open for interpretation. Yeah,
I mean, they're talking about like being seasick at one point. I mean, that's up for interpretation. But yeah, I guess maybe that's where it is. And their style maybe has a few kind of like little elements of other rock genres in it. I don't know. I wouldn't have thought that either, but I'm surprised. I mean, maybe they're just very formative and I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I should look into it a little bit further and maybe listen to some of their other stuff and see how people revere them in such a way that they do. But yeah, with Procol Harum, I'm pretty much a whiter shade of pale kind of chap.
What does the word fandango mean? Do you know, Tim?
Fandango, isn't it something to do with the Regal Cinema chain?
That's what I thought, but doesn't that song say something in the opening line about light fandango or something?
Yeah, something the light fandango. I think people say fantastic and then they say fandango instead, I think.
Oh,
I don't know, Joy. Give Fandango a goog live on air.
Okay, let's see here. Fandango. Because, see, you're right. All I can think of is that company that sells movie tickets.
What does it say?
A lively Spanish dance.
Oh.
Well, I feel bad. Sorry if you're Spanish out there. I didn't know.
I didn't know that too. And I just saw the cinema ticketing app Fandango where they do special events where they put like opera on in the cinema or something. Get your tickets through Fandango.
There's always an ad saying that somewhere. Oh yeah, Tim, you're always at the opera.
Well, you know me, I'm very highbrow.
Are you listening to what was the artist you went and saw Billy Ocean and they acted like he was super highbrow and Roanoke? Was that who it was?
Yeah, it was Billy Ocean and the Roanoke Symphony Orchestra, expecting it to be a Billy Ocean gig, and there's all these snooty people on like these tables drinking wine and cheese and things. It was very weird. And
then you're like, but I thought Billy Ocean was coming out. Oh, okay. We have very different concepts.
Well, he did. He came out and he sang some of his classic songs, and he sang some songs with the Roanoke Symphony Orchestra. But it was just a very bizarre combination.
But was there an advertisement for a Fandango at some point?
I don't believe so, but it was over 10 years ago at this point.
Well, now that we've taught all the people what a Fandango was, it probably been yelled at by like 3 people that we should have already known what it was. What would you like to leave the people with? Just
be extra kind to everybody that you meet.
I agree with that. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. See you later. Bye-bye.
To find the another day to